Hello, Daisy. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to count you in 3, 2, 1. We're going to inhale through our nose deeply, exhale through the mouth 3 times, and then I will explain this graphic that you see on the screen, and we will talk about our topic for today. 3, 2, 1. Okay, very simply, you were born with an untrained brain. That brain is naturally defaultedly wired for comfort, safety, and survival. Now you don't have to live the rest of your life in that untrained brain capacity. You have the ability to start at level 1 with Neuro Reps, work your way up to level 2, level 3, and level 4, and take an untrained brain that's wired for comfort, safety, and survival and neurologically transform it into a brain that is focused on excellence every day, strong prefrontal cortex, regulated limbic system with a neutral SGACC, subjugal anterior cingulate cortex, so that you can access excellence every day of your life. Your brain didn't come with an owner's manual. It didn't come with any instructions whatsoever, and you have been navigating through life with no instructions on how it functions. So you really can't understand how you function. You're just what appears to be functioning, and that's not enough. That's no brainer. It starts on Instagram at level 1. If that's something that you are now at a place neurologically where you can accept and are willing to do, then you can go to Turnaround Doctor on Instagram and message me, and I will tell you what steps that you can take so that you can start to DIY build your brain. Back for part 2. Let's go. Good morning, Lacey. All right, again, Paul do. Now let me get the graphic for today. What are we talking about? An action loop. Here we go. Nope, that's your thing. Here we go, right here. Decoupling is the Neuro Rep for level 3s. All right, so today we're talking about a perception action loop. And I was doing work, I can't remember. Oh, this is from my actual class because I already threw away. Hello, Bridget, and hello, Lola. And Bridget, your Neuro Rep for level 3, half of it didn't come in. So it stopped at the, yeah, so now you just have the bottom part of it. So go back and check that out. To put the top part of it in, because it felt like it was incomplete. I can't think correctly right now, but it was cut off. The front part of it was cut off for your level 3 Neuro Rep yesterday. Okay, so we are talking about the perception action loop. Now let me come on camera and introduce myself for the people who may not know who I am. I am the amazing Dr. Donna Thomas-Rodgers, daughter of Leslie Darnell Thomas, granddaughter of Arthur Jethro Evelyn II, and great-granddaughter of Levi Thomas. My live is sponsored by The Elements, H2O. When I say drink water, you drink water because this is a mental workout. And let's go ahead and get our first drink water in for today. Drink water. Now, before I get into this, what I would like to say is this. Constantine, the somebody, was on TikTok. And the person came in and said, Trump, something, 3 American flags. That's what he said. And so I asked that person, because he's obviously identifying as a patriot, what military branch was he in? The person then said that they were in the Marines. So then I asked them, what was your rank? What was your rank when you were in the Marines? And he said E6. And so then I said, well, what was your MOS? What was your MOS and what years were you in? And then the person said, no. The person said, what are you writing a book? And so then I proceeded to pull out and I told you I needed to have that graphic. My graphic with me as a private first class in basic training, as a lieutenant in a basic training unit, and as a staff member of a whole basic training AIT battalion. And so as I began to pull out receipt, he then displayed 5 emojis. I don't speak emojis, so I don't know what emojis they were. And then we didn't hear from him anymore. And I asked him, was he there to stay? Now, why did I make that neurological choice? Because, again, trolls have a modus operandi. They come, they want to say something because they've misread a situation, and now they believe they know who they're speaking to without asking questions. If you had asked me who I was, I would have simply said, this is who I am. So my point is that in your life, as you continue, and this is just slightly, as you continue to grow and develop inside of your brain, you will have similar experiences where people will then begin to want to challenge you, and you were unaware potentially of those challenges. Your ACC might have registered a little bit of friction, but it wasn't online enough. Your prefrontal cortex wasn't strong enough to recognize immediately what is actually taking place. The more you wire your brain for excellence, the more you get to a neutral ACC, it will become blaringly obvious to you the dysregulation that you are presented with in your day-to-day life. And it is at that point that you actually tap into your neurological power. It is at that point that you have the ability to read the situation cognitively instead of emotionally. And it will happen. And you might be in a grocery store. You might be getting a pedicure. You might be on the phone doing a routine task at the job, and it's going to click. And that light is going to come on. All that excitability, all that action potential is going to fall into place. And you are naturally not going to do what you would have done in the past. You are naturally going to read the situation from a neurological perspective and be able to respond naturally instead of react. And that's when you know that your brain, your prefrontal cortex, is fully functioning at an excellent level and it's online, because you are going to see it very clearly. And then you can respond how you choose. You can say, oh, I'm not responding to that. Here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to do. But now your brain will go through the natural decision-making process of a high-functioning brain. And you too will be able to do that. When you consistently keep doing these neural reps, your brain is going to be extremely strong and online completely. That is the whole purpose. That's why you're waking up. That's why you're doing the neural reps. That's why you're listening to me. That's why you're doing the research, so that you have full, complete control and power over your amazing brain. Now, once that person recognized that they were not talking to the average bear, they had nothing else to say. They had nothing else to say. And so as soon as that person said that they were E6, that let me know that they were not completely senior enlisted. They were not an E7, they were not an E8, they were not an E9, they were an E6. So just a little above a buck sergeant. The other reason why I did that is because that person, even though they were in the Marines, would have still had to salute me. Because I still outranked that person. So that person didn't think, because he finished at E6, I finished at O3, which is a captain. So that's the other reason why he stood down, because neurologically the rank structure was there. So as soon as he saw that butter bar on there, he knew this was different. The butter bar is not where the respect comes, but you're putting them 2 silver bars on there. Now you're doing something. So that's the other reason why he was quiet and we did not hear from him again. So this goes to my final point. When you start doing excellent things and then people with their little episodic success show up, you can say, oh, that's cute. That's nice. But what have you done lately? What did you do yesterday? And then, because they have a dysregulated brain, probably nothing. Probably nothing. They probably didn't use their 61,200 seconds for excellence. That's why you do the work. Because now you can be cool as the other side of the pillow. You can be calm because you know who you are. And other people can't come and assume who you are or tell you who you are not. That is the beauty of all of this work. Now, perception action loop. What you see, what you do is what you reinforce. Yesterday's TikTok live is what you wire gets repeated. What you wire gets repeated. So what you see, what you do is what you reinforce. So your brain is not reacting to reality. Your brain is reacting to the perception of reality. And people have said this before, and I've used this statement: your perception is your reality. Your perception is your reality. And so the brain acts based upon the perception of what they believe is real. And then that action reinforces that perception. The cycle is called the perception action loop. You perceive it as reality, and now that's a loop for you. Even if it's not true, that's still the loop for you. So here is an everyday simple explanation so you get it. Your brain is constantly running loops. Remember, the brain wants to be efficient because of how much energy it takes to run the brain. So whatever it can do to make it efficient, it's always looking for predictability systems. That's why things get coded into the basal ganglia, and now it's a habit, good or bad. So perception is, what do I think is happening? What do I think is happening? Interpretation is this safe? Is this a threat or is it important? What do I think is happening? Let me see. Is it a threat? Is it safe? Is it important? And then the action. What do I do about what I think is happening? And then the feedback is, what happened because I acted. Yesterday, the young lady told me that I yell and I'm angry. So that's what she thought was happening. And even when I was explaining to her neurologically that's not what was happening, she 10 toes down on that, which is why she no longer has access to me on TikTok. So the loop repeats itself. That's a perception action loop. I think these people are racially profiling me. So now, whether it's true or not, everywhere I go, people racially profiling me. That's not me saying that. I'm just using that as an example. So it runs thousands and thousands of times per day. What do I think? What's happening? Is this what's happening? Okay, that's what's happening. These are actions that I'm taking. And most people are not aware that it's running. Real leaders train the brain. As I said on the TikTok live, you'll find yourself eating and you're not even hungry. You snacking on something sugary or salty just because. Ooh, they made me mad. Let me eat. Ooh, I'm happy. Let me eat. That's a perception action loop. You think this is what's happening. That's the behavior. And now you've encoded that, and now that becomes your loop. So here's an example. You receive a text and the person just says K. Your untrained brain says the perception is they're mad. The action is now you are withdrawn, you ruminate, and you send a defensive message. The result is the tension increases, and the loop reinforces. People get upset with me. You started it. They said K, you thinking they mad, let me send this text. And now you got the results of what you thought was happening, but that might not have been. They might have been tied up. They might have been getting a pedicure, manicure, something, and all they could do was hit K on a thing. But in a regulated brain, the perception is that's just neutral. You continue on with your day, nothing escalates, and the loop is reinforced. I stay stable. So you're using your astrocytes to make sure that you keep a stable, neutral environment for your brain. Same text, different loop. This is a great example. Number 2, you see someone stronger than you at the gym. You see somebody doing Zumba better than you. You see them in yoga poses better than you. You see that. And now the untrained brain says, I'm behind. Jared, if you're on here, you say that. I'm behind. Bridget, at one point, you said that about me. Action is, I avoid the gym. Because you saw one person. You didn't see that person as somebody like, ooh. You saw that, ooh. The results is now you ain't got no muscles. Because you saw somebody with a lot of muscles. So the loop is reinforced. I can't compete with the strong person over there that's actually a professional bodybuilder. That's who you saw. You just attempting to get in shape so stuff don't jiggle and you got flexibility and strength to just move around in your day-to-day life. So then you can't compete and you leave the gym. A trained brain says, perception. Look at what's possible if I keep coming to the gym. Wow, that's a great specimen over there. Trained brain might go over and say, hey, what's your workout routine? How long have you been working out? What's your diet? You using any creatine, any protein? What's happening? And then the action is, I'm going to lift weights. I'm going to do Zumba. I'm going to do yoga more. How long have you been practicing yoga? What's made? You know what? Can you give me some pointers on my back? Man, that part is getting me. I can't. Every time I stand in bow, I fall over to the side. What's your balance secrets? The result is growth. And the loop reinforced effort builds strength. So perception decides the action. Perception. You see something. Now, let me explain this too. Based upon your experience, your perception is either going to keep you well-rounded or very limited. No, see, I'm not going to eat that. No, I don't eat anything that is brown. I don't eat any brown foods whatsoever. No, is that red? No, I don't eat red apples. I just do not trust red nothing. I'm not going to have anything red whatsoever. And that's your perception. It's not real. It's not real at all, but you believe it to be true, so you create that loop. Get that brown food away from me. I don't want nothing red. You ain't never supposed to wear light blue past Labor Day. If somebody got on light blue past Labor Day, it's gonna rain. So, thank you, Jared. Visual sensory cortex. It receives the data. This is what's happening in the brain. The amygdala obviously is always scanning for some threats. The ACC is the error detector, and it detects the mismatch. The prefrontal cortex is executive control, and it's the decision maker. And the basal ganglia obviously is the habit loop, and it automates the pattern. So if you don't interrupt it, the basal ganglia is going to wire that, and what gets wired gets repeated. So if you tell yourself, I'm never going to the gym again, everybody at the gym got muscles except for me, and I don't work out, even if you drive past 24-hour fitness, you're going to look the other way and keep driving, because that's your perception action loop. Now let's look at this in a dysregulated versus regulated loop. An untrained loop sees the stimulus, they get emotional, they react, and it reinforces that. That person has muscles, I don't have no muscles, I'm leaving the gym. That's how that goes. A trained loop is the stimulus. I see somebody with muscles. I pause. 10 significant seconds of silence. I evaluate. Damn, how they get that many doggone muscles? How she bend over like that? Wow, she literally can do a headstand not against the wall. And then you have an intentional action. When class is over, I'm going over there to talk to them. As soon as they finish weight training, they go down the stairs, I'm going down the stairs after them. And that reinforces the action loop as well. That pause is the prefrontal cortex coming online. That's what that pause is for. That's where real leadership lives, in the pause. You see a stimulus, you pause. You let that cortisol, that adrenaline, everything go down, and now you can assess what's actually taking place. And here are the principles of real leadership that go along with this. Be a thermostat, not a thermometer. The 10 seconds of significant silence is everything. It is. So control perception before reaction. That's what it's doing. Hold up, I'm a thermostat, I'm not a thermometer. I'm not going to get mad because I got all those muscles and I'm over here. My belly's so big I can't see my feet when I'm standing up. Don't do that. Don't do that at all. Be objective. So question interpretation. So if I leave, is my belly going to get smaller or bigger? If I stop coming to the gym, am I going to have more belly or less belly? If I stop doing yoga, am I going to be more flexible or less flexible? Next is be objective. Did I say that? Yes, your question and interpretation. Next is carry only what you need. Don't carry distorted narratives. And I said that on the live this morning, on the TikTok live. I said, I'm waking up looking at my face, and first thing I hear is my mama talking about don't get old. That's her narrative. That ain't my narrative. That don't even make sense. How you going to not get old? That is absurd. That's a stupid statement to actually make. Well, I just know don't get old. Don't get old. I went to the doctor today and they said, oh, I came in here looking for a 70-year-old woman. Here you are. You look good for your age. You look good for your age. You look good for your age. That's her whole claim to fame. Personal accountability. You are responsible for the loop that you reinforce. If you have reinforced, I'm not going to the gym, I'm not going to do that, you reinforced it. You never questioned it. That's on you. You don't have to keep it that way, but you did wire it that way. So here is what can take place. Most people think that they're reacting to reality, but they're actually reacting. Watch this part. You're going to clutch your real leader pearls. You're actually reacting to a story that your limbic system wrote in 0.3 seconds. You think you're reacting to reality, but you are reacting to a story that your limbic system wrote in 0.3 seconds. And then they rehearse that story until it becomes their identity. In 0.3 seconds. Thank you, Lola. In 0.3 seconds, y'all. You wrote that story in 0.3 seconds, and then it becomes the narrative or one of the narratives in your life in 0.3 seconds. How you feel about that? Your limbic system wrote a whole story, and now you live in that narrative of that story from 0.3 seconds. How does that feel? I tell you what, 10 significant seconds of silence is longer than 0.3 seconds. 0.3 seconds. Not 3 seconds. 0.3. That's not even a second. 0.3 seconds. How you feel? You got all these perception action loops that were written in 0.3 seconds. 0.3 seconds. That's fast, in the blink of an eye. And now you repeating it for your whole life. For your whole life. So we're going to do a quick micro workout here. Think of something that recently irritated you. Everybody got it? Something that recently irritated you. If you got irritated today, it could be today. If it was yesterday, if it was last week. Think of something that recently irritated you. Now ask yourself, what was my perception? Yesterday they put Chipotle sauce on my tacos and I could not eat that because it will activate heartburn because I am perimenopausal. Even though it was on the receipt, not to get it done. So it was the person who actually prepared the food. So was it a fast or was it a fact or was it interpretation? It was actually a fact. What action did I take? I bid it to see if it was going to create some excitability inside of my body, and it did. And so I told Nola, you can have the other taco, and I took the chips off, and here's what remains of the chips. Some of the chips, I ate some of the chips on the TikTok live. It was more in there than that. So what did I reinforce? I reinforced that my orders are going to be wrong because of people rushing to get things done. If you go somewhere at lunchtime, it's going to be a lot of people. These were new people that were working there today. The regular staff that knows our order was not there. And so what I said was, anytime there is new people working, check the food before you leave. Because everybody had it, but the person that made it. So, and then they didn't put guacamole on Nola. So my side of guac went to her. So that's what took place. Now for you, what took place? You got to think about that. What was my perception? Was it a fact or was it interpretation? And remember what happens in the brain, if you not be objective, which is one of the 74 principles of real leadership, which means you base all your decisions on facts, you're going to start mythologizing. And that means you don't have facts, but the brain wants to put information in that space. So it's going to create anything, false narratives and everything else. You don't need a new life. You need a new loop. Everybody thinks they need to move. I'm like, you take you wherever you go. You coming with you in the moving boxes. So if you ain't going to change, don't change your address. That what you doing is coming with you. You coming with you. That's what's going to happen to you. Yeah, I got to get out of here. Wait, you can't get out of here. You can't move out of here. You can't. No matter what you do, your brain coming with you. That's true. I gotta go. I can't take it no more. Ah! Loops matter. So you don't. This is the first time I've never lived somewhere in my adult life longer than I have lived here in the same house and same everything. 15 and a half years we going on now. Whew. You could have told me when I moved here I was going to be here in the same for 15. Like, long as I ever lived somewhere as an adult was 4 years. So by that 5th year, I was like, but I got a new life. In the same everything. I didn't need a new life. I didn't need a new loop. I needed a new life. I didn't need to keep moving. Well, I had to with a job because the work, in order for you to have a different position, you had to move. Because them people were sitting in them other jobs. So your future is built not by the M word, motivation. It's built by perception. And those perceptions turn into action loops that you automate. So train the loop. Train the loop. Simple today. Train the loop. You're taking 0.3 seconds and you turning that into a narrative. and a behavior that you demonstrate again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and you never even checked your loops again. You never even seen if it was actually true. Jared, you got to get to when was that first honey bun enacted in your life, the sweets. What is that about? And when you finally get to that loop that encoded and then turned into a somatic marker, now you're like, as soon as you get to it, you're going to stop. You are actually going to stop, and you will never pick up another sweet again in that for that reason ever again. It'll just be like, oh, I haven't had a brownie in 6 months. Let me see. And you won't. And it'll taste different too. You'll be like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need a brownie. Yeah, it's like me when I gave up them donuts from 7-Eleven. I went back a year later. Them things taste like cardboard. I was like, nah. I ain't even about to give this to nobody. I don't want this in nobody's body. Nobody should be eating these damn cardboard donuts. Not at all. So thoughts on this process before we move on to the brain bit. Thoughts on this process. Anything, what's coming up for you? Are you recognizing something? Are you having a loop moment like, uh-oh. Whew. And while you think, I will continue to say that everything is neurological. Everything is neurological when it comes to human beings. It is happening. And I know physiological, biological, all of that, but it is the brain. It is the brain. And yes, loops matter. They actually do. Because the narrative from dysregulated people gives you permission to not self-reflect. Oh, that's not what's wrong with you. That's not what's wrong with you. Such and such. This is the reason why you. No, it's not. Because it's still a personal choice that you are unconsciously making based upon false information. That's why this whole don't get old narrative is stupid. Yes, it's the foundation. Prune those bad habits by recognizing mythologized perceptions. That's right. That's what's happening. And you do it. And you're not even really aware of it and never questioning it. One thing I have been able to do is say why. You know, if you ever talk to a toddler, why? But mommy, why? No, I used to say, mommy, why? But why is that? But why is that? Why is that? It used to initially annoy me, but she needed that information. And when's the last time you say, why is that? And I say, who was in the meeting? When something doesn't make sense, I'm deep diving to understand it because that doesn't make sense. And if it's going to stay that way, then I exit all systems that are attached to that. I'm good. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not about to be using any of that because it doesn't work. And these perception loops are effective because they keep you from achieving excellence. They keep you from achieving excellence, and that's why they're so quick. Because 10 significant seconds of silence is 10 significant seconds. 0.3 is faster than 10 significant seconds of silence. And now the basal ganglia is going to make that loop happen before you can pause. And that's why you have to understand the body, the insula saying, hold up, wait a minute, what's happening? You can't stop the nervous system from doing what it does, but you can't process it based upon actual tangible information. Is this in fact true? Is it true? Now I can be objective, one of the 74 principles of real leadership, and I can actually use my prefrontal cortex to make a decision, a plan, a strategy. That's why you don't do anything without a why and a strategy, because otherwise you're going to create a perception action loop that you don't want to do, but you keep doing it anyway. You're sitting there with your brain like, hey, I don't want to do this. Why am I? But if you don't understand how the brain functions, then you can't assess neurologically what you have to prune with those microglial cells, and you don't know what you need to build. And you won't be able to do that because your neurological environment will be unstable. So now the astrocytes can't do their job. I understand. I know someone like that. Okay. But I'm talking about you. I'm asking you what perception loops have you created? This is major, Dr. Donna. Thank you, Jared. So it's for anything. It's not just for oh, I know somebody exactly like that. I've done it. So it's what actual perception action loops do you have? You took 0.3 seconds, then verify the information, and now every time that shows up, you are already using that loop. That's not based upon factually based information. Okay. Let me get to the brain bit. There we go. Okay. So here is the chained brain. The chained brain is a metaphor for a brain operating under unexamined conditioning, emotional reactivity, and repetitive neural loops. It is not chained by circumstances. It is chained by untrained circuitry. And I alluded to this yesterday on the YouTube live, that it is not circumstances, it is untrained circuitry. And that's where this brain bit actually came from. So what the chains represent neurologically, the amygdala dominance. So these survival circuits are driving decisions instead of the executive circuits. That's why the emotional baseline in the SGACC is super low. It is a weak dorsolateral prefrontal cortex engagement. So it is limited top-down control over impulses, emotions, and narrative creation. It definitely is bottom-up. ACC fatigue. So Miss Brenda is tired. And as a result of her being tired is reduced error detection. And so what happens in place of that, is this correct, does this match, is defensiveness instead of self-correction. Busy week at work. I will check up the replay. Y'all have a great Tuesday. You too, Jared. Reduced error detection. Defensiveness instead of self-correction. That's what's happening with the ACC fatigue. Basal Ganglia habit loop. There's automatic behaviors repeated without conscious review. So you are not assessing in your default mode network if this still works. You're not doing quarterly updates. You're just repeating the same emotional habits. And then the rumination circuits, and this is in your default mode network, you're overactivated. So recycling old stories instead of building new execution pathways. You just keep saying the same old thing over and over and over again, and nothing ever changes if nothing ever changes. So what a chained brain sounds like, just so that it can cement it in your brain. This is just how I am. I've been this way, I'm going to be this way, and ain't nothing wrong with the way I'm being right now, which is why I'm being this way. They made me do it. If y'all would behave better, then I would behave better. If y'all would stop getting on my damn nerves, then I would stop getting on your damn nerves. I can't change. Can makes the impossible possible is one of the 74 principles of real leadership, as well as embrace change. That's not fair. That's not fair. Be fair, first of all, is one of the 74 principles of real leadership. However, saying that's not fair without actually assessing it. Now, let me explain what most people say that's not fair. Most people say it's not fair when it doesn't go their way. Even if they're the reason why it's not going their way, that untrained brain is literally going to say that's not fair. They're going to cry like a toddler in the toy section of Target when they can't get that. That's not fair. I want a toy. They got a toy in their hand. That's not fair. And I've always done it this way. And to answer your question, just of the WWL20, it's applied neuroscience and real leadership. This is not personality. This is neural automation. And here is what breaking the chains actually means. Breaking change is not emotional release. It is strengthening the focus circuits in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And that is why you need to do the daily Neuro Reps. Activating the conflict monitor, Miss Brenda Jones, the anterior cingulate cortex. Tolerating discomfort without limbic override. The only way to do that is to strengthen the prefrontal cortex. You did that with Krispy Kreme donuts. You got rid of them. Bridget, every time we drive past Krispy Kreme, I say, look at that. That's the devil over there, boy. Them damn Krispy Kreme donuts that have it so you ain't got a tooth in your pocket. Installing new behavior through repetition. That's what the Neuro Reps do. Every day you strengthen your Neuro Rep, you strengthen your prefrontal cortex with a Neuro Rep, you regulate your emotional center, and you get to break those chains. Practicing personal accountability under pressure. You say, I'm personally accountable, I'm personally accountable, I'm personally accountable. And then when life starts life, and you'll find out if you actually are personally accountable. That is real leadership at the neural level. So what does it look like with a dysregulated brain versus a regulated brain? So a chained brain in dysregulation is bottom-up reactions all the time. All the time. Bottom up, bottom up, bottom up. Seeks comfort, avoids friction, protects ego at all costs, and repeats the same behavioral patterns in the basal ganglia all the time. That's a chained brain. Now, an unchained brain and a regulated high-functioning brain is top-down governance. It seeks growth, it leans into friction and says, hey, this is where the magic happens. It corrects itself, that's that daily personal accountability, and it builds new pathways every single day. And the stability, as we talked about the glial cells last week, understanding the importance of a neural clear, stable environment is how you are able to strengthen your brain. And you allow the glial cells to do what they need to do so that it works best for you. So here is the real leadership connection. Be a thermostat, not a thermometer. Carry only what you need. Grow continually. Hold yourself personally accountable and inspect what you expect. A chained brain wants relief. A trained brain wants regulation. Self-soothing is very important. I agree. I did not say anything about self-soothing. Where did you hear me say self-soothing? Where did that come from? Jess, what is your doctorate in? You have a doctorate in psychology. What was your dissertation on? It was focused on PTSD. So what was it about? You can type. You can type and tell us all about it. And when did you get it? Okay, got it. So my question to you is, what was it on? Could you please repeat the chained brain statement, please? A chained brain wants relief. A trained brain wants regulation. So while you talk, I'll give you an example of the information I'm looking for. So my doctorate is an EDD in education, is organizational leadership. And so I became Dr. Donna in 2008. I started my dissertation work in 2006, and it's based upon Robert Northhouse path goal theory of leadership is situational. And so because I worked at Frito-Lay, I was the continuous improvement master trainer for the region, Mid-America region at Frito-Lay. And there were 19 distribution centers. And so what I determined was that level 4 teams are high performance teams, and that they use Robert Northhouse path goal theory to become those level 4 teams. And so I interviewed team members, team leaders, the leadership team, as well as the HR manager, and used that for the basis for my dissertation for high performance teams. Since then, I am now using that as my foundation for my current research. And how do you create high performance individuals in their everyday life? So everyday brain for everyday life. So I've taken that research from that started in 2006, and I'm continuing it today. And what I have found in these 18 years is that the reason why adults can't achieve excellence in their day-to-day life is because they don't know how the brain functions, and as a result, they cannot be high functioning. So my work today is to teach adults how the brain functions in everyday life under the pressures of everyday life, coupled with, so that's the applied neuroscience, coupled with the 74 principles of real leadership and the theory of personal accountability, so that they can use all of these resources to be high functioning in day-to-day life in real time. so that when they come up against someone who's attempting to hijack their amygdala, they can say, oh, you're trying to hijack my amygdala. Got it. I'm going to use 10 significant seconds of silence, decrease the cortisol in my prefrontal cortex, and I'm going to respond instead of react, because the brain didn't come with an owner's manual. And so I am actually that owner's manual now. So that's what we're doing here. So my question to you is, that's what information I'm looking for when you say focus on PTSD, veterans and PTSD, because I am a veteran and I do have PTSD and a minor case of depression. So I'd like to know, as being a veteran and also as someone with a doctorate, as someone who started research in 2006 and is continuing that research, and I've expanded upon it for the last 18 years, my question to you is, what was your dissertation on, and are you still researching? And you can do a ... or a brain or emoji to let me know that you're answering and ready to respond to my questions that I have for you. And we all can drink water. Are you there? Okay, well, if you're thinking, I'm going to continue on. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do our 1 minute of peace so we can strengthen our SGACC. How this works is I'm going to flip the screen around and then set my timer for 1 minute, and you're just going to be in peace for 1 minute. And then you will know that the 1 minute is over because you will actually hear my tablet go ding 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 ding, and then we will finish out with your 2 daily questions for the day. All right, let me flip this around. I'm going to count you in. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Final thing for today. Are you still there, Jess, of the one WWL20? Because I'm about to address what you've done and I want you to be here for it. Because I'm not one to be talking about people behind their back. Okay, well, perhaps you're waiting to see what else I'm going to say before you interject. Now, I'm giving you an opportunity, if you're still here, to answer the third question that I have for you. Well, I had, what year did you get your dissertation, get your doctorate, and all of that. And so you have failed to give me information even after I've given you examples. And so I'm going to go back. And you said, are you discussing neuroplasticity? I explained what I was discussing. You said self-soothing is very important. I agree. I never said anything about self-soothing. That's why I was confused as to that. And then you said people are more inclined to intrinsic as extrinsic as opposed to intrinsic. It makes sense. And then I asked you what your doctorate was in, and you said psychology. And then I said, what was your dissertation on? And you said focus on PTSD. And then I said, so what did that entail? and then you said veterans and PTSD. And then I went to, because you're here to do a academic check. And then I went on to explain to you my work that has continued for 18 years. And now you're not here anymore, or you're not talking anymore. And so yesterday or the day before, I told everybody that the academics were coming. I told you all that the hazing would begin because I'm a little bit, they feel like I'm putting my toe in their lake of their little lake of academia, when I would never. That lake is contaminated. All their work is how you are where you are today with untrained brains. So I'm not asking for permission. I'm not asking for peer review because I have no peers. I'm not asking if y'all think I'm right. I am. And so we've gotten all the way to a person with a psychology degree, doctorate, and they focused on fish in a barrel. You know how simple it is to focus on PTSD, and more importantly, veterans with PTSD? Who other than, I mean, the only other one would be people who experience domestic violence. That's fish in a barrel. But to be at a Fortune 100 company and assess across 19 distribution centers in real time, to go and interview actual people doing actual work at an actual company that was publicly traded on Wall Street, and then interview teams and interview the team leaders and interview the leadership team of the region and the HR manager, and develop research questions for all of those people and get that research approved. Because in order for you to do a dissertation, you have to get the research questions. You got to do a proposal or concept paper and get those questions approved before you can even go do the research. And after you do the research, then you need to write the dissertation, and it needs to get approved by a committee and the chair and a committee of people who already have doctorates. That's how that process works. So it's 2006, 7, and 8, and I'm doing that in real time. And oh, by the way, people rarely ever do their doctorate at their job because that's too hard to do. So they pick these fish in a barrel topics that they will be committee approved. And then once they get it, they put that information aside, and then they go do other things, and they dust it off if need be to let people know. Well, when I did my research for my dissertation, okay, well, I just did research yesterday. We are not the same. And so we will not be hazing me. Have a great day, Lola. Okay. So I'm grateful for this person because, again, I'm focused on my inhibitory control and also my credential checks. And I explained what I did so that this person would understand what I was actually asking, and they tapped out. So the lesson that you can extrapolate from this person, as I asked if they're still there, is they tapped out. Now, why would they tap out? And why would they tap in? They tapped in because they assumed that I did not have a doctorate too. They tapped in because they thought they were smarter than me. They tapped in because they thought they were going to tell me something that I don't already know. They tapped in because they heard some buzzwords and they thought they knew what I was talking about. And at no point did I say self-soothing. And if they had listened a little bit longer, they would know I would never say no fucking self-soothing. But when you are focused on negativity bias, which is what their brain was wired for, which is why they picked a dissertation for PTSD, and I picked a dissertation that said, how you get excellence out of people. We are not the same. Way back then, before I even knew what was happening neurologically, high performance teams. Robert Northhouse path goal theory says leadership is situationally dependent. So you can't just say, this is the type of leader that I am, and this is how I'm going to always lead. You can't. It depends on what's taking place. And then to take that and say, I'm at work all day, I got to pick something where I'm at. Oh, this matches level 4 teams. Now let me go see if I'm correct. And I was way back in 2006, 7, and 8. And now I'm saying, why can't we take that research? If it works in corporate America for high performance teams and those were people there, then it can work in everyday life. So I developed the 74 because it was incomplete. So then I developed Real Leadership, the principles of real leadership, 74 of them, and the theory of personal accountability, because once you get a doctorate, that's what you get to do. You get to develop your own theories. And so I did. And so now we have the theory of personal accountability, the 74 principles of real leadership, and we have applied neuroscience. So if they could do it at Frito-Lay in real time and get real results, then you can do it in real time in your own life and get real results too. That's the difference. So now you can understand why I will not be on anybody's podcast, because what they're going to do is what their loop has caused them to do. So their actual perception action loop says, oh, someone has on a brain shirt, they must be talking about neuroplasticity. Let me use my stuff so I can out educate the person who appears to not know as much as I do. And so for the second time today, we had a Trump supporter on TikTok Live trying to tell me something about 47. And I said, where's your service at? What branch of the military were you in? And then you found out that I had receipts on receipts on receipts on receipts on receipts, and you were quiet too. So today I'm 2 for 2. And they had to take the L as Dr. Donna for the W. So another person who believes because it's psychology, they have a PhD, I have an EDD, that somehow they outrank me, and they don't. He misread the room, she did too. And then assumed that I was speaking about their rhetoric and I'm not about to use what they're using. What they're using is the reason why we don't know how our brain functions. What they're using is stay at negativity bias, because her objective is to get people from a low emotional baseline to functioning. So that then when they hear a pow, they don't go, and they don't click off safe. That's what we called it in the military. That's not enough. Excellence. They're wiring people for function in day-to-day life. And I'm saying be extraordinary in day-to-day life. That's my objective, is for you to be a bad mofo too. And I'm grateful for this environment. I'm grateful for all the conversations that I have with chat in my default mode network. I'm grateful for the notifications of my Insula and the friction that takes place with my ACC, because now I have strategies for them. Now I'm ready. I have a photo for all the patriots. I have a graphic for all the people trying to academically check me. And I have another graphic for the rest, the remaining internet trolls. And I actually have neuroscience, applied neuroscience for all of them. For all of them. Because they have episodic success and I don't. All while minding your whole business at that. And continuing on to give the actual adults who actually want to know how their brain functions so they can be high functioning. So that is what you see. When you strive for excellence, these episodic successful people have to bow down and bow out. And they are using, again, shortcuts. She's here. She's got a brain t-shirt. Let me go. What were you talking about? Neuroplasticity? Yes, self-soothing is the way. I didn't say anything about self-soothing. You went and started playing your own perception action loops. And then you couldn't answer my questions because academics are not prepared for my questions. They're not. And we see it in real time. Where is this person at? Focus on PTSD, veterans and PTSD. Okay. Because when you get your dissertation, and I said this already, you're just trying to get the doctorate. You don't really give a fuck about the actual research that you did. That's why we're not talking about it. Because I was going to go 2 different ways with that person had I got the information. Number 1, I'm a veteran with PTSD and depression. There we go. Diagnosed by another psychiatrist. That part. So I am a veteran. And then I also have a doctorate. So which way you want to go with that? Could have talked about both sides of it. As a potential person, that could be a potential client for that person. Because then I want to know what it is that you're researching. But I have applied neuroscience and leadership. And I understand how the brain functions. So my first question was going to be, so are you teaching your clients how their brain functions? Are you teaching your clients how to not self-soothe, because that's not enough, but to say, yeah, I got PTSD, I don't give a fuck about that. I'm still about to be bad mofo. I'm still about to manage and my day-to-day at an extraordinary level. That's what I'm getting ready to do. I got PTSD, but PTSD don't have me. It's something that happened to me. It doesn't define me. It's a moment in time. And when it shows up, I give it the respect that it deserves. And then I move on because I have a neutral SGACC And so my emotions can be excitable and come on back down. I can process it. I can do a 5-minute brain dump and get that out. I can go to chat and say, hey, this is what happened. What strategy do I need so that I can maintain my excellence? And clearly that person isn't able to do that. That's why I say therapy doesn't work. Save your money. Do a Neuro Rep. They used to have that song, save a horse, ride a cowboy. Save your money and do a Neuro Rep. That's what you can do. And when you get to level 5, you can use all that money that you would have spent on therapy and everything else, and you can go take a good vacation. That's what you can do. That's what you can do, because it doesn't work. So we have a person whose job, they wired their brain and their life for negativity bias. They pick something that's simple. You know what I mean? Veterans have PTSD, especially in the high deployment rate that we exist in now. That wasn't hard to prove or do. You know how much information is readily available on PTSD? That's why they picked the topic. There's a lot of people. The VA sends people to psychologists and psychiatrists automatically. You ain't even got to go shop for clients. They just going to get sent to you. That's why the choice was made. It was a simple choice. And you don't have to cure them, because if you do, that means you need another veteran. So you just keep them at this little string along level. It's not a psychiatrist, because that's medicine and they can actually write prescriptions. A psychologist can't. But then you can just have this theoretical behavioral experience and keep people right here. That's what you can do. And so that's why that person is gone. So checkmate ×2 today. That's what I want for you. I want for you to be in an environment where a dysregulated brain comes to try to check you, haze you, and see what it is. And you, because they misread the room, have the neurological capability to sit there and say, where's yours? Where's your current research? Because once you start practicing, you don't have to do research no more. You can let the other people do the research. And then you can say, well, a paper was just written. I went to a conference last year, and here's what the panel discussion was about. Oh, I like that. So I'll go ahead and try some of these informations that I got from the annual psychologist conference that we go to. You can have a colleague of yours. And now you're experiencing more than this is out of my purview. So let me refer you to a colleague for this type of PTSD. And so then they start fucking categorizing all the different types of PTSD that you got. And now you got to go see 60 fucking people to try to figure it out. And at no point does anybody say, listen, you're going to have to strengthen your prefrontal cortex for you to have a neutral emotional baseline in your SGACC. Just do some Neuro Reps. Any questions before we get to our last 2 questions? Anybody confused about what took place this morning? The champ is here, Dr. Donna Thomas-Rodgers. These motherfuckers need to get out of my way. Okay, here are your 2 questions for today. Thought I clicked it. All right, 2 questions on the board for you today as we close out. What did you learn today? And what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn today? And what did you learn about yourself? These questions are going to do 3 things at a minimum. Number 1, you are training your amazing brain to say, I need to learn something every single day. That basal ganglia is saying, what did we learn today? Don't go to sleep because we didn't learn anything. But you're doing it early. Unless you're across the pond, then you're doing it at night. That's number 1. Number 2, you're saying, what did I learn about myself? In your default mode network time, that's when you're by yourself performing routine tasks that do not require your full cognition to be present, and brushing your teeth, driving to work, washing your car, washing the dishes, vacuuming. Simple tasks. You automatically go to, in an untrained brain, mind wandering, ruminating, and daydreaming. In a trained brain, you self-reflect so that you can self-correct. You're not clear, Lacey? What are you not clear on? And then the final thing is that by putting a ... and a brain there, you are training your inhibitory control to say, I pause before I think. What is it that you're not clear about, Lacey? And let's drink some more water. I need lotion. Thought I put lotion on my hands. Always ask why and take the 10 significant seconds of self-correct. Yes, it's 10 significant seconds of silence. I'm done with my tablet. I don't need it. No. Check my phone. Oh, we're doing good. 29 minutes. Fade black. I'm clear on the info today. Okay, got it. Daisy is thinking. Bridget, are you still there or are you gone? Well, if you're gone, you wouldn't answer. That's crazy, right? I just said that. Nola's thinking. Oh, I forgot about that part. I'm like, normally I'm not seeing myself. Oh. And I didn't take a nap yesterday, but I should be able to get one in today. Noah said, I learned the perception action move happens super fast and it doesn't necessarily take facts in to determine it. That is correct. I did not mean to do that. Nola also said, I learned about myself that perception action loop is why I used to make snap judgments when I was younger. That is correct. That's a good reflection. Okay. Lacey said, I learned today that what you perceive becomes your narrative you live from, and I learned about myself. I was living from a chain brain and had no clue I could really train my brain. Yes, ma'am. Empower others. That's one of the 74 principles of real leadership. And Daisy. And then we'll be done. Nurse Wells, you already did yours. I'll come back on camera. All right, Daisy, I learned that today that I always had the responsibility to redirect my brain. Yes, ma'am. I agree. And yesterday I was talking about the narratives of African Americans and all of that. And so now you can make the connection to the perception action loop. They're not going to let us build nothing. And now that's a whole narrative because it's something that happened over 100 years ago. There's a narrative. Did you even go back to see if it was still all the way true? What part of it was true? No, nobody questioned it. It's a perception action loop that has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And I haven't told this story in a long time, but there was a family and they would always have to get a bigger pot to put the turkey in. And at one point, they just couldn't find a bigger pot for the turkey. And they said, Grandma always made the turkey in a bigger pot, bigger roaster. And so they finally asked the grandma, was it necessary? Why did she use a bigger pot to make the turkey in? And she said, that's the only pot I had. So they didn't build third generation in putting the turkey in a bigger pot when they never asked her why she did it. So perception action loop. You just put a bigger turkey in a bigger pot, and bigger pot, bigger pot, bigger pot, bigger roaster. Before they start, this was back in the day when you used to have to flip it. It was on one of those black roasters. Daisy said, I learned about myself today that I can be successful. You can be excellent, Daisy. Retype that. Delete that. Excellent. Success is episodic. That's not the objective. The objective is always excellence, and episodic success will be there. Me finishing my neuroscience class is success. And me starting the next class on the same day, that's excellence. So excellence is wired daily, and it releases tonic dopamine, as opposed to success has this phasic dopamine, and then there's this drop off that you don't have to do anything now because you are successful. So it's a byproduct when you're excellent. It's not the main thing, it's just part of the thing that you're doing. Okay, so today the Neuro Rep, oh Lord, I forgot. Give me 1 second. Did I go over it? It's not in here right now. I'll give it to y'all after the live. I learned about myself today that I can be excellent daily. Yes, that you actually can be every single day. That's the whole point, is that excellence is higher than success. The dysregulated brain people got you thinking that success is something. It's not. So today you're going to actually assess a perception action loop. 2, you are going to assess one that gives positive results and one that gives negative results in yourself. One that gives positive results and one that gives negative results. So you got 2 different perception action loops that you will be identifying today. That's all that I have for you today. God willing, higher power in the universe. I will be back tomorrow. Same time, same place, safe space, different brain t-shirt. You all go off and have a brain-tastic day. Take care. Adios. Wrong way. There we go.